Any health-related information on the following show provides general information only. Content presented on any show by any host or guest should not be substituted for a doctor's advice. Always consult your physician before beginning any new diet, exercise, or treatment program.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Inspired and Empowered Living TV show and podcast. We are live Tuesday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern on Talk4TV, W4WN.com, and my YouTube channel. So today we are doing part 2, healthy communication and conflict resolution. So discover how to solve arguments in your relationships with healthy communication. As you settle disagreements, intimacy and cooperation grows. Learning conflict resolution is a crucial aspect of fulfilling relationships and an important key to living an inspired and empowered life. So I was ready to jump into the information, but before I do, I just want you to know we're here together to help you create a life you love. And I'm your host, Nanci Deutsch, licensed clinical social worker, certified hypnotherapist, and intuitive breakthrough expert. And I combine my counseling, coaching, and intuitive abilities to transform your life and the lives of many. And the show is not a replacement for therapy or counseling. It is for educational purposes only. So first, I want to do a little bit of review. We talked about what we need to have conflict resolution. And I want to repeat something that was really important. One of the questions that came in was the difference between listening and hearing. And there is an important distinction between listening and hearing. So you can hear someone, you hear sounds, you hear voices. When you're really paying attention, when you're really present and listening and really receiving what the other person says, and then being able to share with them what you've received about what they've said, that is true listening. So listening is a skill. It is an essential skill in order to have and improve your relationships. And listening, and with communication, there are two sides. There is the expressor, the person who's expressing, and then there's the receiver, and the receiver is the listener. And really effective communication, you can't have one without the other. It's really important that you become good in both aspects, being able to express yourself in clear, healthy ways, and then being able to communicate your wants and your needs and your desires, and then being able to really listen to what the other person says. So we have Allie in the house. Good morning, Allie. And as always, you know I love hearing what your comments are, or if you have questions. I always want to hear your questions, and and we have Lauren in the house. Good morning, Allie. Lauren here. Welcome, Lauren. Good to see you. Yay. Okay. So let's continue talking about communication and conflict resolution. Now, I want to share with you an excerpt from a book, and this book is called Making Marriage Simple: 10 Relationship Saving Truths by Harville Hendricks and Helen Lakely Hunt. Now, Harville Hendricks has written books on getting the love you want, and also for singles, how, as a singles person, how to get the love you want. And I highly recommend his books. He teaches and has developed something called imago therapy. And I've used it with clients and I've used it with couples. So it is definitely a very helpful, important work. So I definitely recommend. Now, I'm going to share this excerpt. And the excerpt is, and again, I know that this is about a book from couples, but I also want you all to know that this is about relationships. And what applies to a couple relationship also applies to other relationships. It applies to good friends. It applies to people that parents or adult children. You want to have healthy communication with all those people. Now, if you have younger children, then you can take some of the pieces, but books that I recommend for younger children are definitely, okay, so I'm going to answer that question in a sec. So you definitely want to get the book. Now, it's an old book, but it's a goodie, because I used to teach parenting classes as a social worker, and I used to use their work. Talk so kids will listen, and listen so kids will talk. And it's for young kids and older kids, teenage kids. So by Adele Faber and Elaine Majlish. So check out that book if you have younger children. Now, High Country Corners Gazette, and we have a question. Could it apply to a business relationship? Yes. Okay, so here's the thing. The piece that becomes different is, in a business relationship, you're not going to go into details about your own issues. You're going to keep it very factual and to the point, but a lot of the same principles apply. Okay. So just saying that, and I will talk more about specific conflict resolution that can be used in all situations. Okay. But I want to do this excerpt. So hopefully you realize that the conflict you're experiencing is not only normal, but inevitable and even valuable. Don't try to avoid it. Don't try to deny it. Don't run away from it or wish it away. Stay with it, and you'll discover something wonderful right around the corner. So I am going to say, no matter who or what the conflict is, whether it's in partnership or a business relationship or someone close to you, like a friend, a close friend, conflict is opportunity. And it's an opportunity to overcome for yourself and the relationship, to create new beginnings, new opportunities, new possibilities for the relationship. While conflict makes you uncomfortable, it can also invite you to reflect on your situation from a new perspective. So you have a choice. You can act in ways that keep the conflict going, or you can turn the conflict into creative tension, which gives birth to new insights and talents. In fact, conflict is growth trying to happen. That's powerful. One, get curious. Okay, so this is for everybody, whether you're in a relationship, a marriage, or anybody. This is all about the possibility of what conflict can bring. And I know that when you're in conflict, it doesn't feel like possibility, but I want you to know that there is. And one of my mentors, Jennifer, Jennifer Howe, talks about the physics. And when there is a problem, in physics, there are already solutions. And so that's what I want you to keep in mind, is that there are solutions to your conflict and problems. Okay. I hear you, Mickey. Okay, so Mickey asks, when should we let the conflict go? So I'm going to go deeper into that in a second. I got your question. So stay tuned. So what you want to start doing, and again, this is from Making Marriage Simple, 10 Relationship Truths by Harville Hendricks and Helen Blakely Hunt. They're married. And so you want to get curious about what the conflict is trying to give birth to in your relationship. Okay. So anytime you have conflict with another person, there is something that a possibility, a solution that wants to give birth to something new, something exciting. So that when you think that you're in conflict, start like being open to the possibilities of what could be. And then the second thing that they talk about is often the other person that drives you the craziest is often the part of you secretly long to be more like. So they're giving an example. Helen would get frustrated because Harville used to be emotionless. She felt she married a robot. Harville needed to give himself permission to heal and to feel. And Helen told him by connecting with his heart and brain actually deepened his wisdom and understanding. Her task was to be able to start expressing herself in an organized way, which she learned to do. And so each of them learned new ways of being and expanding who they are as people, and it transformed their relationship. So that is the possibility of what can happen when you overcome conflict, when you overcome and you work on moving through it. Now, so Mickey asked, when should we let conflict go? So letting conflict go, there's a few things here. One is, and this is really the first step in conflict resolution, is first of all, if you are angry and upset and really pissed at the other person, do not engage them. You need to separate yourself out so that you can be able to come back together with that person in a calmer manner, where you'll be able, because you do not want to do or say anything that will be, that you'll later regret, or that can hurt the relationship. Now, there's a few things. When should you let conflict go? There are times when you're doing your own work. So you separate yourself out and you're in process, and you're processing, what is this conflict? What is going on in this relationship that's really triggering me? What is the opportunity here? What is this conflict trying to teach me or birth in this relationship? And if it's something where you are saying, you know what, this conflict, it's not worth it. First of all, if it's someone that is an acquaintance, you may not want to pursue it. You may want to get the benefit from it for yourself, to help you understand what it's triggering in you. And what I mean by trigger is when you are reacting from an emotional place, you have been triggered by the other person. Now, doing my quick psych 101, not psycho. We don't want to be psycho. So your Psych 101 lesson, conscious mind, that's the one who tuned in today. So thank you, conscious mind. Then you have your subconscious mind. The part of you from the moment you were conceived to present time has recorded every moment. So all the limiting beliefs, all the emotions that need to be healed, that need to be let go of, are in your subconscious mind. And then you have your superconscious mind, which is the part of you that is that higher, greater you, like your higher self, this wise, unconditionally loving you, and your soul, that core energy essence. So the conflict may be saying to you, there's something internal that you need to get, and you may never want to talk to the other person. You may choose to let it go. The way that I distinguish this, if there is an energy, and whether it's at home, in your partnership, or in a friendship, or between parents or adult children, or in business, if their energy, there's like, if the conflict cannot be overcome by letting it go, then you need to be able to have a conversation with the other person in a healthy way. Now, ultimately, learning to be able to communicate and have that conflict resolution is really powerful. And when you can find people in your life where you can process and overcome things with, your relationships transform. And I will share, I have a very close friend, and I will call her Susie. I'll call her Susie. Okay. And we're like sisters. And she triggers me, I trigger her. But what is so powerful about our relationship is we come together and discuss. And we are able to communicate our feelings. And because she's a really close friend, we're in communication, and I'm sharing what got triggered for me. And then we start talking about possibilities or solutions. And every time we confront our issues and move to new solutions, our relationship gets closer and deeper. And so that is the possibility. And I'll give you another example. Jenny and Jimmy. Now, Jenny and Jimmy, they had a lot of conflict. Every time Jimmy would rage and Jenny would shut down, there was no communication. It was only unhealthy, toxic communication. And that's not what you want. And what happened with Jenny and Jimmy was that as they started working on themselves individually and they worked on their marriage transformed. They transformed, each one of them. Jenny, who would shut down and go numb, was able to communicate to Jimmy in healthy, assertive ways. And Jimmy, who was raging and screaming and yelling, learned to breathe, count to 10, and not get triggered like that. And so he was able to communicate his feelings to Jenny in healthy ways so that Jenny could hear him, because she was really listening to him and he was listening to her. And what happened is now they are closer than ever. And so that is the power of what can happen when you resolve conflicts. So hopefully, Mickey, I answered your question. If you have another piece or any other parts of that question about the conflict and letting it go, please write it in and let me know, okay? Because I want to make sure I'm on the same page as you and we're communicating effectively, because I want you to get your question answered. As all of you, I want to make sure your questions are answered. So what's really important when you are working with somebody, when you're in connecting with somebody to resolve conflict, okay? Excuse me. Okay, so you want to make sure that, like I said, that if you're angry or upset, that you have separated yourself and processed. Mickey said, that was well said. Thank you. Good. So glad, Mickey, that I was able to answer your question. Thank you. Thank you, Mickey, for letting me know. So again, you want to make sure that you're in a calmer space. Now, if you are in an intimate relationship, you want to go underneath the conflict or the issue that's being triggered to understand for yourself and to hopefully clearly communicate to the person. Like with my friend, what I always do, as soon as I got triggered, I was like, okay, sometimes I needed to separate myself. Sometimes I reacted. Okay, so just know we're all in the learning journey. And what I did was I always asked myself, what is she triggering? What is the issue that's coming up for me so that I can work on it? And so I was able to get a more understanding, self-discovery of my own stuff, and then choosing whether to communicate with her or not. Now, in a business relationship, you don't need to be communicating your intimate details. That is not appropriate. In the business relationship, you still want understanding. I have many clients that I work with that are getting triggered by their associates, their coworkers, their bosses. And we work on what is the issue that is getting triggered. And then we talk about whether to talk to the coworker or the boss or not. Now, sometimes they're going to want to talk to the coworker or the boss, and sometimes they don't. And it all depends on, first of all, most important is that you have an understanding of what the issue is, and then you make the choice of whether to communicate or not. And I am going to talk, okay, so I'm going to get very spiritual on you, but this works for me. And I'm going to share with you, before I have a conflict or a conversation that I'm nervous about, I always do a prayer. Now, if you are in the situation with the person and you're ready to work on the conflict together, if you're both open to the prayer, I would support you in praying together. To me, prayer is so powerful because prayer, it opens the energy, the space to what I call higher vibration. And when you're in the higher vibration, you're more likely to resolve your conflict in healthy, exciting ways than if you're in the lower energies of anger or frustration or fear or shame or guilt. All of those energies will not help conflict resolution. And so the higher level, if the more that you work on yourself, the better it is. So I focus and I ask for a prayer, and then I'll ask angels to come in and help, or you can ask spirit guides or beings of light to support the situation. Because it always helps to have your spiritual support team. That's what I like to call them. Your spiritual support team and the other person's spiritual support team helping you and guiding you during your conflict, or resolving the conflict. Okay. The other thing that I really want to support all of you in doing is creating an intention for a win-win, that both of you will find the win-win. Now, if you're in a business situation, you probably, unless you're working with a church or some kind of religious or spiritual organization, probably not going to do a prayer. So you do your own prayer before you go into the situation. Just saying. That's what I would suggest. And for you, for everyone, okay, no matter what the situation is, holding the intention for a win-win. Remember, whenever there is a problem or a conflict, the solutions are there. It's a physics, the law of physics states that there are solutions every time there's a problem. Now, when you're in the higher vibration, what happens is you're open to those solutions. Or what happens is sometimes solutions unfold. So just know, when you have that intention, that helps the manifestation of the resolution of the conflict. And Carol says, such great health information from an absolute expert in the field. Thank you, Nanci. Thank you, Carol. Thank you so much, Carol. I appreciate that. And so that's what I really want to support all of you in doing before the conversation has even begun. Then the next thing is you want to make sure that you are creating a safe space with guidelines. Now, whether this is for an intimate relationship or a business relationship, there needs to be very clear guidelines, because that's going to be really the foundation of the whole conversation. And the guidelines are, you don't want to have any screaming, yelling, shaming, blaming, dumping. All of those behaviors are acting out anger and other feelings and do not belong in a conversation where there's going to be conflict resolution. What happens when those behaviors come in is it usually escalates and the negotiations or the conflict resolution falls apart. So it's going to be really important to create those guidelines for that safe space. Now, you want to make sure that both of you are present, that you're looking into each other's eyes. Now, if you're in a business situation, you want to be grounded, and this is for everybody, okay? You want to be grounded and centered and present. Again, the more that you are in higher vibration, the more likely this conflict will be resolved. That's what you need to remember in your mind, is so that you're moving to that next level. And it's important that you focus on the present and what's happening in the present and not the past. Because what happens is when you bring up the past and you keep bringing up all the times that this person did this, and this, you're bringing in old energy, and it's actually lowering the vibration. You need, if there's something that happened within the last few days that you're processing, or something that happened in the moment, or if you want to focus on what's happening in the present and not all the stuff and the baggage from the past. Really important to have that healthy communication. And it's really important to listen, so that both of you are listening to the other person. And I also, if it's an intimate relationship, whether it's a partnership or a friend, a close friend, or a parent, you want the words to be, I felt ... You want to own your feelings. Take responsibility for your feelings when this behavior happened. And it's also really important, and this is for personal relationships and business relationships, no matter where it is, you want to make sure that you are focusing on the behavior or the issue at hand and not the person. So what I mean is, if you start youing the other person, you were a real jerk when you did that. Can you imagine what it feels like if that was you? What you're not going to, you'll shut down. You'll go on defense. So it's really important to focus on the behavior. When you didn't show up, or when you didn't communicate with me after I texted you and then I didn't hear from you, I felt really nervous or scared. I felt really hurt. And so it's really important that you are being really clear. You're not bringing in old energy, and you're focusing on the issue. Yeah, Lauren says, hi, Carol. And you're focusing on the issue and not the person. Really important. It's also important that you are not making assumptions about what other people are feeling or thinking. Because when you go into assumptions, what happens is your listening skills start shutting down because you're in judgment, because an assumption is really a judgment. You're judging what or thinking that you know what the other person is thinking or feeling. And it's really important that you come to the situation with an open mind and an open heart. And so no assumptions. And so that you can really listen to what the other person is saying. And I want to share with you, I have a meditation that will help you to clear your energy so that you're prepared to go into a situation for whether it's a conversation or conflict resolution. Go to inspired and empowered living.com/meditation, MEDITATION. So it's the name of the show. Inspired and empowered living.com/meditation. And download the meditation to really help you get into the space so that you can then really be present to receive and to listen and to have that conflict resolution. So Rebel put in the links in the chat. So definitely download that meditation because it can only help you. And then what you want to be doing is, I usually like to start, call it a sandwich technique. And you start with the positive. What is it that you really like or appreciate about the other person? And it needs to be truthful. It needs to be authentic. Don't do fluffy BS. That's not good. We want honesty and integrity. So something you really love or admire or respect about the other person. And then you can start talking about, I felt when, or when this behavior happened, I felt. So Jenny and Jimmy. Jenny learned to be able that when Jimmy would start raising his voice, Jenny was able to say, Jimmy, I felt scared when I heard your tone of voice become angry. And then you started yelling more and screaming at me. And I just went into a lot of fear. And it's really hard for me when you do that. And Jimmy was able to hear her. Obviously, he wasn't in that space. He calmed himself down and he was able to hear her. And he was able to say, I hear you. I hear that you felt really scared, Jenny, when I raised my voice. So that's an example of healthy communication. And Jenny said, yes, thank you. And you want to start brainstorming for solutions, possible solutions to the issue, the problem, the conflict, the situation. And then you can start crossing off solutions that don't work. Remember to focus, have the intention on the win-win. And sometimes, and you want both people to be able to have what they want. So that's what you're looking for in the win-win, that both of you, both sides, feel that they've been heard, they've been acknowledged, because at the end, you want to make sure that you acknowledge the other person and that you're really hearing them and acknowledging them. Very important. And then, and Misty, I see your question that came in. And what I want to do is I am going to answer your question next week, because that you have a few questions and I really want to make sure that I give voice to all of them, because they're important questions and I really want to make sure. So Misty, know that I'm going to answer your questions more next week. Okay. So again, you want to end on acknowledgement. And next week, I'm going to answer Misty's question, and we're going to continue. We may not continue with conflict resolution per se, but I'm going to get the download, but it will be more inspired and empowered living to create that life that you deserve, a life you love. So remember, we are live Tuesday mornings. Thank you, Misty. Okay, cool. We are live Tuesday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern on Talk 4 TV, w4wn.com, and my YouTube channel. And on the podcast, you can listen 24/7 on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Pandora, Apple, and Amazon, and more. So just know, more inspired and empowered living ahead. And I look forward to connecting with you and seeing you next week. Have an inspired and empowered day and an inspired and empowered week. Bye for now.